All right, we're recording. The Chief Masters podcast with Ocelot. Is your first name what, Joe?
My real name's Joe.
Oh, Ocelot's just like a stage name?
Yeah, stage name.
Like Wild Eric, I wasn't born with that.
Okay.
All right, we are in the Matrix. Tell me when you want to go and I'll let him lead it.
Perfect.
So we're rolling? Okay, go ahead,
okay,
Ocelot.
hello, everybody. My name is Ocelot, and we will be recording my first podcast today. I have a little bit of history, and me is I'm more of a self-made biologist. I didn't finish school, but I've continued to research animals and everything, biology in my own way. And I'm here today with Wild Eric, and he will be with me talking today about the flat Earth theory. And we'll be talking about any direction and the way we want to go, and just.
We're going to go down, not just the rabbit hole. We're going to go down the hare hole. We're going to go down the camel hole, whatever. We're going to go down a lot of holes, okay?
And so the purpose of this is to give you an existential crisis. What?
An existential crisis?
Existential crisis.
Right, because through crises we learn. That's the whole idea. We want you to question what you think is reality, you know. And it's telling people my background. I am a filmmaker, a musician, and getting into podcasting too. And I've always, ever since I was a young man, I've studied the paranormal. I come out of the Christian background, but there's a lot of supernatural things in the Bible, and I believe we can tie it into these new theories that are out there in the world now. One being the one we talked about, the Tartarian mud flood theory. It's also called the Great Reset. And go ahead.
Yeah, well, touching on that, what you just mentioned is that for the flat Earth, it's actually it's in the Bible. It's in a lot of Bibles in the world.
Yes.
It's that we're on the back of a camel, we're on the back of a turtle, we're on the back.
Yeah.
Some kind of, and then in the Bible, whether it's round Earth or flat Earth, I like to tell people there's a firmament involved because there's some kind of shield.
And we got to tell people what the firmament is. Yeah.
And the firmament is it's classified. Just a quick search. It's the God's throne room. It separates the waters above from the heavenly earth below, and separates Earth. And from the shield, it's supposed to be some type of atmosphere, or it separates the realms basically.
Separates the realms, yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Right.
So the biblical model, as far as I know, is a flat Earth model.
Mm-hmm. There's religious myths, religious creation myths, whatever you want to talk about in that direction.
Well, I don't know about religious myths. I just know that in the Bible, as far as I remember, it is a flat Earth model. And it talks about the firmament. Okay, so there's a lot of questions that you can even go into the firmament. I mean, the Bible in Genesis, it says that the firmament actually keeps waters that are above that, and it's always made me question, what does that mean? And that's kind of what we're getting into. We're talking about the flat Earth because actually, we're talking about there's people out there believe there's no such thing as planets.
Exactly.
And
yes.
And that the stars we're seeing are actually not exactly, they're not stars. Some people think they're actually entities.
And so if I can just say something real quick, it's
Sure.
just that I like to combine. Aside from the flat Earth, I'm neither a flat earther or a round earther.
Right.
I just believe we're just alive in this world, and we're just, whether it's a dimension, a plane.
You're open-minded.
I'm open-minded.
Me
to
too.
Whatever happens. I haven't been to space. I haven't been to Antarctica, so I'm not gonna beat anybody over the head. It's flat. It's round.
Right. I enjoy the thought experiment of all these things, whether the theories are true or not. It's a thought experiment, and it could be true. And I think that when I think about understanding reality, I picture myself as a police officer with one of those big boards trying to put all the clues together to understand the crime. And the great crime in this is the mystery of reality itself. And so to understand the mystery of reality itself, you have to put all the clues on the table and say, okay, what makes sense, what doesn't. And here's another thing. You can't just go by what scientists have said, especially in a time that we're living in where scientists are bought and paid for.
Yes, that's right. That's one of my main questions for today. So you can look up Google, you can look up YouTube, you can look up anything. How many of these scientists are telling you are getting paid to tell you the wrong thing? And this, you can look at Monsanto, we can take this to any big business. Who is out there is feeding you lies and getting paid for it?
And also, it's not just that, they're being threatened.
Yes, they're being threatened.
In fact, if they step out of line with what the common accepted theories are, they can lose their positions.
Yes, exactly.
What is that? Is that?
I don't know. Did you play that, Chris? It's my intro.
It's we're
Oh, the
having
outro.
that's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
outro.
Oh, okay. I thought
The
you were telling us
outro
something.
of bleeding in. Christoph accidentally hit the outro button.
Okay, 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 cool. What were we saying?
And we're back, ladies and
We're
gentlemen.
back. Yes, yes, yes.
We're just testing to see if our audience is on their feet. Stick around a while.
Our voice of God, as we were saying earlier.
Right.
Yes, our neighbor. But yeah, the flat Earth. And so some might think that because of the Great Reset, we are not having access to various parts. Well, if you look at the flat Earth map,
Well, hold on. Let's be clear about the Great Reset when you're talking about Tartaria versus the Great Reset when you're talking about Klaus Schwab and his Great Reset and the World Economic Forum, because both those terms are being used. And
you're talking about the Great Internet Reset that they're going to get
no,
ready to do.
Charles Schwab wrote a book called The Great Reset. Okay, about COVID-19, and it talks about how the world economically will be reset, and the world as you knew it before will not operate the same way economically. So that's a term, but also the Great Reset is also a term that comes back into the Tartaria theory, which if you want to get into that, is I'll just touch on it briefly. The whole idea behind the Tartaria theory is that there were some kind of world controllers that reset the world and got the world believing that the history that they're used to is not the real history. So basically, they changed the script on the entire world. That's just the surface of the Tartarian flood theory.
Yep, yep. And but what I was trying to say earlier was just that because of that, that happened here within the first ice wall, we don't have access to the other continents out there, which are also like Asgard, Shangri-La,
Yeah.
Eden, which possibly I've always been talking that it could be another dimension or plane, but within our own dimension or plane, but we just physical.
I think, if I may, I think a good place to start off for people who are confused or whatever listening, and some people may be right there with us and they understand. I think if we're going to get into talking about the Tartarian mud flood theory, I think we should start with the basic principles. And if you allow me, I can kind of go through them.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So the basic principle of the Tartarian mud flood theory, you can look up online, and it ties into the flat Earth. But before we go there, is this: that about 200 years ago, there was a unified world, and it was unified with religion. It was unified with free energy, and the whole idea is that there were some evil men at that time that had power that did not like this world because it was not to their liking for whatever reason. And they wanted to take the power back from the people. And so what they did, they staged an event. And some people think that they used seismic technology and they created a world flood of mud. Okay? And it destroyed everything. And then meanwhile, while this was happening and there was devastation, they somehow killed most of the world's population. And some people believe that that's where all the bodies came from in the catacombs in France. Like there's billions of bodies in the catacombs of France, and nobody really knows where they're from. Supposedly, that's what I've heard.
Gotcha.
Maybe there is a count for that, but anyway, for the sake of the theory, let me continue. Now, after that happens and they dispose of everybody, the controllers, they start growing new babies in incubators and they start repopulating the world with new babies. Because why? Because they don't want anybody else around that knew about the old world of the unified free energy world. Okay, so they take these babies, they raise them to believe a different history, and that's how we are 200 years later come to present day. So it's the whole idea that there is a false memory implanted in civilization 200 years ago. And let's see, what else have I? Okay, and here's another principle of the Tartarian mud flood theory, that there are structures. And these structures, such as ancient churches, they were actually repurposed. They used to be power centers, okay, that ran this free energy world. And they've been repurposed as churches, but if you actually go back and look at some of the things like the bricks, the red bricks are conductive, and if you look at the way it relates to electronics and power stations, that these things were once power centers. And so that's part of it. And now they're saying that if you go and you were to dig up some of these structures, or look at some of these repurposed structures, that there's still layers of ground. But if you were to dig up, there's the old doorway, like the front door. If you dig like maybe 10 feet down, is the original front door, you know. But it's all hiding in plain sight. That's the whole idea. And I'm see if I could try to put this into the how is it going? Trying to think if I'm leaving out any details. So anyway, that's the main thing, that they repopulated with the world with new children, and the question is, why did they do this, and who are these controllers? That's the question. Does it relate to the devil, or does it relate to Masonic people who are in the higher levels? Because the whole Masonic thing is that everybody on the lower levels supposedly knows nothing about what the higher levels are doing, and that's the whole conspiracy theory. But anyway, Ocelot, I'll bring it back to you.
Well, going back to what you're saying, the resetters, as we were talking about.
The resetters,
yeah,
like who are they? Yeah.
Are they aliens? Are they us? Are they
right? Are they aliens?
Are they
yeah.
humans from the past, from the future? Are they what's it called? Anunnaki, reptilian, whatever.
The reptilian. It could be anybody, right?
And so I've researched, not really researched, but what I've known about the Galactic Federation. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
I've heard of Galactic Federation, sure.
And so it's a collection of aliens that we know that are in our solar system, or our universe, our side of the universe. And so, are they the resetters? We have to ask ourselves.
This is a great question.
Because I've heard both stories, that they're good, that they're bad, and that's both sides of every coin out there.
Yeah.
You have to hear all the stories from all the sides, not just.
And all these rabbit holes are actually connected.
Yes.
And that's what makes it so amazing. I read a book called Passport to Magonia, written by what is his name? He's a Frenchman, Jacques Vallée, and this ties into aliens, okay? Now, here's the question that he proposes. Are aliens aliens, or are they masquerading as aliens, and they're actually a race known as the fairy folk, okay? Now, throughout time, there has been magical creatures, okay, that people have reported. Now, these magical creatures, they're in Ireland, they're known as the fairy folk, okay? And they have all kinds of different powers and things, and they've lived among us for all this time. Now, what he says in the book is this, that there's parallels between alien abduction and fairy abduction. When fairies abducted people, they used to do the same things that modern aliens are doing. And so you're talking about a race of beings that are, they're interdimensional. They can leave this dimension and they can come back. And therefore, they have a unique position to control us because they're that more powerful. And maybe they had some kind of agenda. And now this ties back into the Bible, because the Bible talks about a race of fallen angels that have an agenda. And so that might tie into the Tartarian mud flood theory, because maybe they're trying to control the perceptions of mankind. The Bible talks about how the devil and his angels are actually trying to control the perceptions of mankind. Why? Because they want to enslave us, and ultimately they want us to go to hell with them. So this could actually tie in. Maybe there are no aliens. Maybe they're just this demonic race, And we can get into the classifications of those demonic beings later, because I know a little bit about demonology. But so that could be a possibility with this Tartarian flood, that it actually is the works of Satan, Lucifer, whatever you want to say. Or they could be actually aliens. Maybe there's no Lucifer. Who knows?
Well, back in when I did watch Ancient Aliens, I did love hearing about where they could come from, like I was trying to say earlier. Sometimes they're from the future, some from the past, from a different dimension.
Yeah.
They could be, some might even call them not even aliens at all. They're just demons, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And there was a fine line between what is a demon, what is an alien, because nowadays
yes.
nobody knows the correct definition on either one.
No, people just know the layman's terms, but if you study it, you can. There's really many different classifications of I'll just touch on this right quick. A demon, okay, according to biblical scholars, I actually get this from one of the preachers I listen to. His name's Benny Hinn, and he says, here's the difference. It starts off with God creating the angels, okay, and then you have the revolt. When the revolt happens, the angels are all banished from heaven, and so I guess they're flying around the galaxy or whatever. And if there's a galaxy, and they come to Earth, and while they're in Earth, the book of Enoch says, here's what the angels did. The angels are so mad at God that they're changelings, and so what they did was they transformed themselves into every being, and they mated with these beings, and they created hybrid angel beings. So let me give you an example. If an angel had sex with a human, they created half human, half angel, and then that's where you get giant men from.
Yep.
And then if an angel had sex with an eel in the ocean, it would be a sea serpent that can talk and everything. So they're creating these hybrid alien slash animal or humans. Okay, now that classification, once an angel has sex with a creature on earth and they make a progeny, they're known as Nephilim.
Yes.
And the Bible talks about them in chapter 6 of Genesis. Now, from there, what's a demon? A demon is a Nephilim that's been killed. So once you kill a Nephilim, that is what gives birth to a demon, a disembodied spirit. That's why demons are always looking for a body to inhabit and the possession. Now, if you're a Nephilim, you're in the flesh. You don't need a body to inhabit. But demons do. So, just wanted to touch on that.
Perfect. But yeah, so much with the flat Earth. You know, like I like to mix the Matrix theory sometimes.
What do you mean, like the
whether
simulation theory?
Yeah. So the firmament would just be the shield. There's still something behind that. Whether we're making it, it's already there. Whether it was created by God, is it really like a hologram? Can we see those planets? Can we actually get to those planets into the future? So some questions I had for myself. Whether to
and we can get into CERN too.
Yeah, CERN.
Yeah.
And so, do you want to touch on that real quick?
I could say so much about CERN, but again, I come from this model that, you know, there's only so much of reality that can be known. Because we think, let me tell you a quick proverb. It's not a Christian proverb, but it's a proverb. You had this king, okay, and he was a wise king, and he was trying to teach his students. And he brought all the students in, and he blindfolded them. And he said, now none of these students, they didn't know anything about exotic wildlife, okay? So the king brought in an elephant, okay? But he blindfolded all the students, and they never had seen an elephant in their life. And so the first student, he says, he's blindfolded. He takes his student's hand, he puts it on the elephant's leg. He says, now, tell me what an elephant is. He said, an elephant is a tree. He takes the next student, and he puts the next student's hand on the tail. He says, what is an elephant? He said, an elephant is a rope. Finally, the last student, he said, he had him touch the elephant's ear. He said, what is an elephant? He says, oh, it's a fan. So the lesson of this proverb is, since we're all touching such a small piece of the universe, how could we ever claim to know the totality?
Yes.
And it's sheer hubris when one human with one set of eyeballs and whatever and one brain can think they can understand the cosmos. That is arrogance.
Yes.
But it's only through the discussion of many that we can even get a glimpse of the total picture. Because we all have, some people have seen spirits, other people haven't. You know, and therefore we need to share that. And then this ties into CERN, if I may.
Yes.
Max Lugan, he was a young kid, and he started talking about CERN online, and then suddenly he vanished. Why? Was he telling the truth? We don't know. Look him up. But here's the idea. Stephen Hawking warned us that CERN was a bad idea. CERN is an experiment in Switzerland under the ground where they're colliding molecules together to try to recreate the Big Bang and find the God particle, supposedly, or something. And Stephen Hawking said, don't do this. You're going to open up a black hole and kill us all. Now, back to Max Lugan. Max Lugan said that this CERN experiment is shifting us into different realities, and that ties into the Mandela effect. Because the Mandela effect is that we're all, some of us remember the past differently, and some of us remember the past how it is now, okay? And the whole idea is, if we're being shifted into different realities, who's to say if one day we're not shifted into the flat earth, and the next day we're shifted into the circular model?
Oh, man. You went really deep with that one. And, there's been so much going on from just the flat Earth. I wanted to touch on other subjects. Maybe if we have time now, or for maybe section 2 about the plasma moon, the sun, the multiple suns, the black sun. Why is there still a sun at night if people are still seeing it? And people are catching video of this and all this stuff.
And then you have the Anunnaki theory, the Anunnaki theory. Yeah, that goes back to Sumeria, and some people think that we were just a slave race created to mine gold for the Anunnaki, and that how Planet X is in an elliptical motion and it's coming back, and so some people are seeing that in the heavens. But haven't heard much talk about that lately. But like I said, there's so many theories, and I think they all have to be explored. And a lot of times scientists are so stuffy. They're like, we know it's reality. Well, that's like I said, that's back to the elephant thing. That's complete hubris.
Yep.
The nature of reality is so unknown. And earlier I was talking to Christoph, and we talked about how, if the universe is one big imagination, and let's just say it's my imagination, but the world exists, the universe exists inside this God imagination. Well, a God could change the color of someone's hair just by thinking about it, and he could change reality with the snap of his fingers. So reality could be way more malleable than we even imagine. And that's scary. To think that.
Going going back to the title of God, it's I like to consider ourselves the gods of this planet. We're not the best caretakers, but we have shown everything else on this planet that we can change it however we
Well,
want.
in a way, yeah. In a way, we are gods. I of course, being a Christian, I believe that there is one God. But
Well, even the Bible says, "Ye are gods."
yeah, it does say that.
Yeah.
And what it means by that is you are creators, and because we're created in the image of God, and what is God? God is a creator, so therefore every human is a creator. And we have a choice whether to create something good or create something bad.
Yep, and that's why we were kicked out the Garden of Eden, which is
We made the wrong choice.
Which, if the flat is correct, we could actually make it back there. And we
Yeah.
just gotta bust through that ice wall, whatever. How we gotta get through it.
We might be able to get back there. Yeah.
And so, one question I had for myself is,
Sure.
just before the podcast and everything was, how are we gonna space travel if it's a hologram? Are we just going deeper into a hologram, or we just have like? Are we just,
Well, that's the idea.
Are we still in incubators and all this is
Have you heard that there's been missiles shot up there to try to break through the firmament?
Yep. And then that's what SpaceX and
Yeah.
that's what they're trying.
So let me ask you this: you ever see the Mothman prophecies?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so Richard Gere in the movie asked the scientist, he says, well, why don't these spirits or these things explain themselves to us? And he says, have you ever tried to explain yourself to a cockroach? So we could be such lower life entities that us trying to get through the firmament could be like an ant right now trying to get out of a Gatorade bottle we put the lid on. Is that ant ever getting out of there?
Yep, that goes back to who put us down here? Are we trapped down here, or we're free to leave anytime? Can we phase through it? I've asked myself these questions, and it's just
Let me give you some perspective that I was just thinking about. Like, honestly, Sylvia Browne, read one of her books once, she said that Earth is just university for eternal spirits.
yes. And so, if you want to get a little spiritual with it, we can head that route as well.
Well, it's all connected. I think
Yeah.
we
Well,
can, sure.
At the end of the day, it's all source correctly. From if we're going to the spiritual route, is source is a place you can actually get to. Apparently, it's in the 12th dimension.
What do you mean you can be connected to the source?
So Anunnaki and everything else, they got separated. They're at a higher dimension, but they're not. They don't have access to source like humans us do. They consider us special.
Okay, but if the Anunnaki are in a higher dimension, are you talking about a possibility for them? Because the mainstream theory that I've heard is that the Anunnaki are on a planet somewhere and they're just alien life forms.
Nibiru.
Nibiru, right.
Planet, yes.
So are they simultaneously spiritual beings too, kind of like us, but they're able to phase into the spirit realm?
Well, if the Anunnaki are the Nagas, are the spiritual, the reptilians, are the combination. There's good ones, there's bad ones. There's ones here from Earth that mutated supposedly
Right.
after the dinosaurs died off. That some of them went underground. And so, but when it comes to Nibiru is a planet that is supposed to return back
Right.
to us. Some people say they've seen the star coming back to us.
Right.
Every time somebody sees a comet, a meteor.
It's also known as
shining the
Planet
star,
X, I think.
It's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming back towards us. It's
Yeah.
Some people say Area 51. Some of the Noctu have already escaped, and they're
I
making
wish
back
they
to
would
Earth.
come back.
Yeah, and
You know,
so-
this
and
world needs something to shake it up.
and so I was trying to keep pop culture out of this, but my favorite quote from the second Avengers movie, Age of Ultron, was that when Ultron says, "When Earth gets too high and mighty, God throws a stone at it," and that's another term for the Great Reset that we've had.
Have you heard of the Adam and Eve story?
Which one, the Greek?
No, it's actually called the Adam and Eve story. And when you go to CIA.gov, I think, and there's something called the Freedom of Information Act,
Yes.
and type in the Adam and Eve story. And I don't know much about it. I read a little bit of it. It's kind of hard to understand. And the way that CIA.gov purposely has things written, you have to print it out because it's hard to read on a screen.
Yeah.
Because you have to, it's just weird to explain. But it says in there that the Earth is programmed to reset itself with tidal waves and things every so like 100,000 years or something.
And that's another thing. We have that technology now. Us as primitive humans compared to our great resetters, we have that technology now to create our own tidal waves, our own earthquakes.
Right, it's true.
The movie Geostorm was no joke. We have something up there that can.
Oh yeah.
Or something in Earth.
We're controlling the weather, earthquakes.
Yes.
Which is, I think it's a brilliant. No, I don't think you should kill people, but I'm saying as far as just looking at plainly as a warfare tactic, the greatest warfare tactic is a tactic that looks like an accident. Yes. You ever heard the term "I'll kill you" and make it look like an accident? Yeah. Well, in a warfare term, you send a tornado or an earthquake somewhere. I'm like, oops, that was nature, not us.
That's right.
And ecological warfare.
Ecological warfare is.
Yeah.
I was gonna say economic warfare. Yes, we already have it.
Yeah. But it's wild, man, when you think about. It's almost like it almost overloads the human brain to think about these things, and that's why I think a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't want to think about this. I think there was an episode of the Orville where Seth MacFarlane, yeah, he said, "Don't get me started on time travel theory because it hurts my brain." Mm-hmm. And that's the whole thing about sifting all through what could be possible realities. It hurts your brain. So, not so much mine, but a lot of people don't want to talk about these things because it's too complicated and too, if people don't see proof right in front of them, they're like, look, I want to watch my Netflix, I want to get home and eat my sandwich, I want to make love to my wife and make the money and yada yada. People are so caught up in the everyday life of being human, we don't have time for the extra magnificent thoughts it takes to contemplate all this stuff. But I'm glad you do.
Which is kind of opposite of what the purpose of technology was originally for. Technology was designed to make our lives easier, and so we can lay back and think about anything we wanted to think. But so few have taken the time to go deeper and deeper.
Well, I want to challenge that not in a negative way, but I want to challenge that and say that technology, yes, is designed to make our lives easier, but I think the more noble thing behind technology is using technology to further understand the nature of reality, Yes. And using it for good, it's to save lives, but also the fundamental understanding. And that's why I love Star Trek, because what did Star Trek do? They used the technology to bring peace and to explore the universe, and that I think is extremely noble to get off the planet. If there is an outer space, I mean. Star Trek's one of my favorite shows because why? Because we're exploring the unknown and we're getting to meet new friends like Spock and Worf and all these great characters, and you have interspecies marriages, and I mean, how fascinating would that be if you're like, yeah, this is my wife and she's from Alpha Centauri, she's got 3 boobies, and it's like I think that's the whole idea of life. One of my teachers, Anthony Robbins, that I read his books, he says that the juice of life is when we can grow. Happiness comes from growth. Yes. And how much happier could we be? It's almost like when you go to a new country, you're exploring all their culture. Well, could you imagine going to another planet and exploring their culture? I mean, sensations and things that you've never could even imagine you're going to see. And that's really, I think, what drives us.
Yes.
Back to the Matrix. It's the question that drives us. Right?
I mean, what I was saying about technology to begin with, that was the definition of technology. The way I learned it. And
is that really the definition of technology, like the cold textbook?
The way my teacher explained it to me. So, right. Should we look up the exact definition?
Well, we could, but I mean, I was just saying that there's many different ways you can look at it. You can give it your own definition. But I was saying, like, the most noble use of technology is to, I think, to further the understanding of it. Where it's nice where technology can give us comfort, but too much of that will destroy us.
Yes.
Because think about what technology has done to numb the minds of the world. I mean, doom scrolling is a real thing, man. I catch myself doom scrolling and I almost want to throw down the phone. I wish some days I don't have my phone, because if you don't use your phone correctly, it can be a negative thing in your life.
Yeah. So you have that natural creator in your mentality already. So doom scrolling is not for everybody.
Well, not only that, I have conviction about time usage. That's why I haven't been able to get back into RPG games. My favorite game, for those of you who are older, in the 90s was Chrono Trigger. It was a really great RPG. It's one of the first great things that Square Enix put out, but they were Squaresoft back then. And it has a counter. When I beat the game, it was 32 hours. And I was like, okay, this was a great game, but, I really need to think about getting things done in my life,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that are more important.
Time wasters. Yeah.
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 So you got to kind of do it with, because there's joy there, and I think that we have to regulate our recreation and balance it all out. But anyways, so where are we at in the map?
Where are we at in the map? We can talk about some of those ancient civilizations. I know Tartaria is the one here, but we still don't know what about the other ones. I don't have any idea what they could be called. Anything I'm not.
What, the ancient civilizations?
About outside the ice walls and our current one.
Okay, you want to talk about the stuff outside the ice walls? Well, we didn't actually get to the ice walls yet, so let's tell people what that it's all about. So, according to flat Earth theory, okay, there is an ice wall that surrounds the entire flat Earth, and we cannot escape. Let me bring it back to something here. My friend said to me one day, well, what would be the purpose of hiding the flat Earth? Why do they want us to believe that the Earth is a sphere? And I said to them, because you can't walk off a sphere. But if you're on a flat Earth, that means you could walk off of it and go into the next realm. Okay? And therefore, a sphere is a prison, and a flat plane is not a prison. It could be a never-ending plane. And when you get to past a certain point, when you get past the ice wall, there could be other lands and things that they're hiding from us.
Gotcha.
So that's number one. Now, not only is there an ice wall, according to flat Earth theory, but some people believe that there are concentric, I think it's called concentric, but there are circles within circles, and these circles are all walls, all kind of like if you get over the wall, there's the next plane of, region of the real world where there are, mystical things out there. It could be a world of giants, who knows? It could be a world made of chocolate and candy, but they're hiding it from us because they don't want us. It's almost like, okay, perfect example. There's a movie called The Village. And in the movie The Village by M. Night Shyamalan, these children, you think that they're in like the 1600s or something. And then the girl finally, and what's keeping them out of the forest is there's a demon out there, but it's actually just their controllers in a costume. And the girl finally gets past the boundary, and then she walks into a highway, and you find out this whole time, this is not the 1600s, that they've been fooling all these kids because they want to try to make a super society. So that could be the same principle here, that we're all being lied to, that that the world is just a piece of it, and there's actually a whole bunch more, and they don't want us to go there. And some people have even argued that it's because we're a fallen race, and they're keeping us here like a bunch of insane, like it's a big booby hatch. It's a big mental asylum, and it's called Earth.
I agree.
And it would explain a lot. That's why we have the fall of man, original sin. You take 50 of the best people, and in 3 generations on an island somewhere, you'll have a rapist, you'll have a thief, you'll have a murderer. Why? Because something inside the human equation, something in our DNA, our genome, is flawed, and that evil exists within us.
Yeah. Somebody was comparing the Tower of Babel and SpaceX or NASA sending a rocket back. When we had access to the knowledge, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, it gave us the power to challenge God, and I really like that idea.
Yeah, I think that's the original sin. Besides, that's the original sin. I mean, even if you,
was it a sin, or did God just place that on us? And so that's
a good way to look. Yeah. Well, what is a sin? A sin, if you think about it, is just anything that's going against God's divine order.
Yes.
And let me give you an example here. If God, in a parallel way, is the human brain, and everything that exists attached to it, like the citizens or God's creation would be the body. Could you imagine if the body decided to attack the brain, and the foot's like, well, I'm a better brain? You're probably not. You're a foot. You know what I mean? So I think that reality could be like that. It could be all these creatures trying to defy this God creature that maybe does know what's best for us, and we're fighting it. And here's the thing. Even if you're right, you're still wrong, because you're not a God. Only a God can defy a God and win. And therefore, if there's anything that's equal to God, they kind of cease to be God. You know what I mean? So, because God the whole idea of God is like it's the maximum. It is the top of all the hierarchy of power, you know, and so I guess we all kind of have, but that's the original sin, wanting to be God, right? Satan wanted to be God. Eve wanted to decide for herself what to do and what is right and wrong. And I see what you say there. It's like, well, why don't we have the ability to do that ourselves? And that's just at the end of the day, whether you want to submit to authority or not, you really, if it's really God, there's no way. I've often had that equation in my mind, like, why did the devil rebel against God? Did he know something that we didn't know? Did he know that God is defeatable? And well, so far he hasn't won because we're all still here doing nice things to each other, you know. So, but